All right. Welcome, everyone, to another live broadcast of Lead Generation World Live. Thanks for joining me. I've got a great guest today. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about a whole host of things regarding the lead gen industry, specifically here in the US and in the UK. So it'll be a great conversation. I'll bring Simon on in just a moment. But I do want to run down just a couple things. One is obviously we want you to participate. If you're watching on LinkedIn Live or YouTube, you can leave comments below and we'll see them. So it's a great way to ask questions or provide your own opinion on different topics that we'll be covering today. And then also we've got lead generation. Hey, everyone, those that commented, hello, good to see you. Good to see you. We do have Lead Generation World London coming up May 9th and 10th. So just in a couple weeks. Super excited about that. If you hold on towards the end of this broadcast, I will be giving a 50% off code for registration. So if you're last minute and can attend, we'd love to have you there, and you can save a boatload of money by just waiting till the end of this broadcast when I give you that code. So let me bring on my friend Simon Delaney from Databowl. Simon, what's happening, my friend? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Not
Excellent.
too bad.
I'm excited to speak with you again today, but also excited to see you in a couple weeks in London.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking forward to it. It was a great show last year, so
Yeah.
hopefully it's similar this year.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully it's similar or even better.
Even better, yeah.
Okay, so hold on. I got a question. So that weekend before is the King's coronation.
Mm.
Do we care about this or do we not care?
Uh, I think whether you care or not, you're going to be impacted by it. So, like,
I certainly, yeah.
yeah, where I live, they're closing the road off our road and having like a big street party, and then the
Yeah.
road that we connect from is closing. So if I wanted to get anywhere that weekend, I'm pretty screwed anyway. So, you know.
Yeah. So, okay, well, so it's a big deal, right? I mean, this is a once in a lifetime situation where, a new monarch is being, I don't know, what do you call it? But
Crowned.
crowned, yeah. So it is a big deal, but is that sort of the consensus there in the UK, or are there some people that just don't care?
I mean, I'm sure, yeah, there's people don't care. I think that I think it's just quite unique because
Yeah.
we had the Queen for what was it, 70? Was it 70 years? I can't even remember. But there's entire generations of people who've known nothing about a coronation or anything. So
Yeah.
whether people care or not, that's why there's sort of like a great deal of interest, and people will be impacted by it. It's just a really unusual event.
Yeah. So we've got I know there's activities taking place on the Saturday. I think they're doing some things there at the Palace, and then Sunday as well. And I think there's even live music taking place down in London on Sunday, and then Monday I think is what you were referring to, right? Is where all the neighborhood community parties are sort of taking place, and that's like what I read was, yeah, like you said, tables, but like food, everyone's sort of celebrating. Is that what is planned for
Yeah,
Monday?
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's pretty selfish of them to do it, when Lead Gen World's happening the day after. But
I know.
uh,
I was a little offended, but it's okay.
um, yeah, so it's on the Monday. I think I need to check when I keep getting like WhatsApps and emails about a street party, and odd numbers need to bring X, and Y numbers need to
Yeah.
make sure they don't be sick after drinking too much, and whatever else the instructions are.
So you don't know what you're bringing, what the D's are bringing?
Uh,
It's like
I, I'm pretty sure it
fruit,
was. I'm
chips.
pretty sure it was like odd numbers bring something sweet, and even
Okay.
numbers
Okay.
bring something savory. And I think we're an even number, so I think it's something savory. So
Okay.
with a quiche, there's a quiche that's being made, so it'll be something like that. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Sounds good. I will be obviously in town. We actually, obviously Lead Generation starts that Tuesday. We did, obviously move it one over a day at least. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and it should be a really great event. So I'm happy that you guys will be there. You'll be speaking, you're exhibiting, all that good stuff, and hopefully, we've got a really good group of attendees already registered, and we'll likely see a number of them continue to come in over the next week or so as well. So excited about that. So what's new on your front, on the Databowl front? Anything new you want to share? What's going on in your world?
Um, I mean, we've been working pretty hard on this new bit of software we're working on, Partner Hype, which is like a kind of transparent marketplace for lead buyers and lead sellers. So the idea is that if you're a lead buyer, you have to kiss like 5 or 6 frogs, right, to meet a good lead supplier. Every lead buyer I ever speak to said that in one way or another, that there's a sort of lack of information. If you're a lead seller, or anyone selling leads has worked with people that either don't pay, they end up rejecting leads for reasons that you didn't know in advance. There's lack of feedback. You potentially don't know the sales or marketing process that a lead goes through. So what we're trying to do is work out a way where we can remove that opaqueness so that lead buyers can find out a lot more information and gain transparency and trust with the lead sellers that they're going to be working with. And lead sellers can understand exactly what the processes that leads go through, what the rejections reasons are, how feedback is going to come, what the terms are, what the payment terms are. So it's just removing like all the shit. We're pre-watershed, aren't we? Removing all the SHIT that surrounds lead buyers and lead sellers.
Yeah.
And just trying to arm people with like pure information so they can make really informed decisions about who they're going to be working with, and there's no surprises. I think personally, I mean, it's one of these things where you create it and you're like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. No one can beat this.
Yeah.
No one's ever thought of anything better. And then you go, I mean, it's not my first rodeo, so you go live and then you're like, holy shit, we've missed this like massive point, or oh my god, it's not. So we're in a
Yeah.
sort of beta testing mode at the moment. And we'll be looking to push it at Lead Gen World.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's the joy of the joy or pain of running a SaaS, or a tech company, which is it's never perfect.
Yeah,
It's always something pops up, something's changed. There's some iteration that needs to be updated, whatever it may be. But that's also the joy of it, right? You're always improving, you're always building something and making it better, which is pretty cool. But going back to Partner Hype, yeah, that sounds great. I mean, one of the problems, at least when I was buying leads, and I don't think it's changed really at all, is transparency and trust, and figuring out, is the lead seller telling me accurate information of what they're actually doing, and how they're doing it and all that sort of stuff. And then, like you said, you don't really tend to find out until you spent thousands of dollars, and then that's a problem. So having a home or a network, wherever it may be, where you can go in and get all that information up front, and then make a solid decision, is excellent. And like you said, vice versa too, as a lead seller, being able to easily connect with buyers. And that's another thing, just easily connecting with buyers and sellers in one location. I mean, there was a time when I was at a company that, it would take 30 to 45 days just to set up a new vendor, because of the log of tasks that our IT team was always having to do. And like, I couldn't just step in front of all those things as the marketing team all the time. And so it would be, yeah, we want to bring you on, but it's going to take 45 days, or maybe even
yeah.
longer, And so it's like having a single location to be one implementation, to then connect with multiple partners is a useful tool in itself.
Well, I think everything you've mentioned is something that we're working on as well. So, for example, um, this is one of the reasons it takes long to set up, is that I've been going through like infosec documents, right? That
Yeah.
normally, if that buyer would have to sign off with every single lead seller or lead generator they were working with. And these are like lengthy documents, that we're sort of used to. So
Yeah.
running a SaaS business that acts as a processor between the two. But smaller companies are just like, they just wouldn't be able to do it. They'd end up having to send it off elsewhere if it was a smaller lead seller, but also how much of a ball ache it is for the lead buyer to then manage all those relationships. So suddenly, if that can be removed because the processing is taken care of in like a middle entity between the two, it sort of removes the need for them both to do it. And then the API setups, can just be like a real ball ache as well, where if you're working with multiple lead sellers as the lead buyer and having to do all those setups. But like you said, there's two big things, and you sort of mentioned both of them. So one is there is like a no barrier to entry in lead generation, right? And this causes a host of problems because we all get mixed up in the same pot that are in the lead gen industry. So really we want to be able to define who is good and who is bad based on proof, not what someone's saying to you, because everyone says the same thing. We're the best. We're not shysters like the rest, blah, 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 whatever else. But the other thing is the trust. What happens when you have to kiss 5 frogs and you spend $1,000 or pounds, whatever, to find out someone's bad? Is the amount of wasted resources to actually get to that point is huge. The amount of conversations, the amount of time, those documents we've talked about, the API setup, the loss of money in itself, the leads that have like been collected in some way, and you've ended up with all this. Daniel put a post out, so I wouldn't say winky wanky. You've ended up with all this winky wanky data, it helps absolutely no one. So I feel like it's like an overarching, and it's a big aim to try and solve these problems. But that's why it's worth doing, I think.
100%, and it's one step at a time. You're not going to solve the world's problems in one swing. So that's cool. So I'm excited to see and hear more about that at the show. I would assume you're getting a lot of positive feedback from both buyers and sellers already.
Yeah. This seems to be going down well.
Good. All right. So we're going to do something fun today. We had talked about doing like just a total grab hat of topics, and we're just going to riff off of, these things. And so I've got a hat. I'm going to put these. And by the way, it looks like a small hat, but it's actually a big hat.
It's like one of those ice hockey hands.
Yeah, it's like a big foam finger, but it's a foam hat.
Yeah.
This guy, and I can't read it. Where are my glasses at? It's called the nogginboss.com. And they make these big hats. They were at the show in San Diego, and they brought all these things. And I was like, okay, it's pretty funny. I mean,
what use would that be? I mean, when do you use it?
What do you mean? When you go to the grocery store? I don't know. When you go out and mow the lawn? I don't know.
If you guys just a huge swollen head or something.
You mean you don't think this is like a normal hat to wear out?
I can't believe I used the
from
word
the UK.
swollen.
Just don't get it.
You've got a swollen head. Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea. To ask your question, I have no idea. Other than just promotion, I suppose, like promotional stuff. So I'm gonna throw these topics in this big old hat here, and I'm gonna just pull one out, and then we'll see what we're gonna be talking about here for a second. We'll just go through a bunch of topics, and don't hold back, okay? Don't worry about the SHIT word or anything like that. Okay, so these are basically just words. Yeah, thank you, Pinar. It is a great hat. Okay, so basically what I did was I wrote down a bunch of words or phrases inside that are sort of hot topics in the lead gen industry, and we're just gonna read them off and see what you have to say about it. So this is certification, seal of approval. What do you feel about certifications? There are organizations being put together. There are different things, companies that are providing sort of certifications around either lead generators. What's your general thought about certification or these types of seal of approvals?
So is this, you mean like trusted form and Janaya
Yeah,
and stuff?
yeah.
Yeah, I think they serve a purpose, which is yes, a bit like proof of stake, which is, this event happened when you think it did.
Yeah.
So I think there's two things that I could probably say around it. So one is it sort of points to uh, this lack of trust and the low barrier to entry. I mean, the very fact that you have to create technologies to not just catch like fraud, right? Because we're not talking fraud like click farms or bots or whatever. We're talking like people doing what we call low level deception. So, yesterday's leads posted today because I can buy them cheaper between 6 p.m. and midnight or something, and I'll post them in the morning. The very fact that you have to create technologies to catch that sort of points that there's a systemic issue with this sort of things happening. Now, I also know that whether or not the companies we mentioned can defeat this, I know companies can get around it, which is, they'll set up like VPNs on Tor browser users and stuff and resubmit forms the next day. So it looks like it's actually coming in live, and you've just got a VPN switcher. So the IP changes constantly and things. So whether or not the companies we mentioned can then bypass that. The other thing is, I don't know if you've seen this, people create pre-landing adverts.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's an advert before the advert, and the advert then goes to a landing page or a like an advertorial or something. So what that does is sort of remove the tracking that you're potentially placing on an advert. And there's some advert which you as a lead buyer would never sign off, especially if you're in like a heavily regulated market, and traffic's being driven to it and it's designed to make people click, and then they click that, see another advert that the tracking is now on, that gets picked up as the ad, and now they're getting tracked through to submission. So because I've witnessed both these things
Yeah.
happening, right? So they're great technologies. There's a potential. I don't know. Maybe I know Rob Rockoff's coming from Janai. I don't know if anyone from
Yep.
Active Prospects is, but maybe they've figured out ways around it. But I've seen people submit the form, so they serve a purpose. But if someone potentially knows what they're doing, there seems to be ways that you can bypass it. But I think the bigger issue is how crazy we have to create technology that's worth millions of pounds, is used, very, very widely, especially in the US, just to try and catch what is potentially low-level deception. It catches much higher stuff as well, but that's where the majority of the things that we're talking about happen.
Yeah, it's like it goes back to sort of that whack-a-mole statement, right? It's like, what you build this and now they're just trying to find some other way to divert it, and I'm sure it's like a race to catch up with whatever the next go around is, and trying to stop that from happening. It is a sad state of affairs, when that has to when that takes place. And let's be honest, it doesn't just happen in Legion. This isn't something that this is unfortunately human nature. There's just cheats out there, and it happens in every single industry there is. And so as of right now, I guess there's not a whole lot you can do about that one example of where someone's like doing advert that goes to another one, or sort of bypasses, or there's really nothing, because you can't really track anything that's not being tracked, for
Yeah,
lack of a better word.
I think it sort of comes back to this transparency thing. So a way to sort of potentially catch things. So I'd encourage that we have these systems in place, because we're talking about like unique events that people are creating that are
Yeah.
bypassing it. I'm sure it catches a lot of them, or it doesn't necessarily catch them. It just creates a atmosphere where you're less likely to try anything because of the fear of getting caught. But you still can't really beat like the good old fashioned audit, where every month you have a call with someone who's sending you leads, and you sit down and go through and pick 5 leads out of random of the 1,000 that they sent you, and go, I want you to take me from start to finish exactly the journey that this lead went on. And if you can pick some that you potentially have questions about, even better. So we used to do this.
That's a great idea.
I used to
Yeah.
work with, or we still work with them, but in a different guy. So we used to sell leads to a big energy company. That energy company now licenses Databowl. But we used to work with them on an audit that we used to do with the lead generators, and we used to do exactly that process. Show me the ad in Facebook, show me the PPC ads. Let's go through the GCL ID or the actual ad itself. Show me the referrer that was on here says X, like where did that come from? Show me the landing page, show me the lead that you've got with the opt-in time and consent attached to that. You just pick some leads at random. And that actually achieves a similar thing, which is it puts the fear of God in people.
Yeah, that's what I was
Getting
thinking.
caught.
Yeah.
It's not like I mean, it'd be great if you could catch someone on one of those orders.
Yeah, but
Like,
not
gotcha.
likely. Yeah.
But yeah, but the point is that if you know it's coming, you're just less likely to be carrying out some deviant acts.
Yeah, it puts their feet to the fire, and they're
Exactly.
even though like, oh, I got to get on this call, and God, I hope I don't get screw up and show them something that they're going to ask questions about that maybe can't answer or don't want to answer. And then if you're on a conversation with somebody, things get awkward. You
Yeah.
you can see in their voice or hearing their voice and all that sort of stuff what's going on. Um,
I can read the comments, just
yeah,
surprising based on the quality of their answer.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, potentially, but yeah, I like, when we used to do it, and the other thing is it really aligns to the customer journey, because the lead buyer then completely understands at like a really granular level exactly the journey that this lead has gone through. And if you're going to take lead buying seriously, which is, I'd suggest everybody does that is doing any sort of lead buying, like carrying out these audits should just be a matter of course. It should just be a monthly thing. You could potentially do it more often if you're spending a huge amount on it. And it just solidifies a relationship, because every month you're going to have like an hour-long call and really dig deep into particular things that are going on and open up transparency.
Yeah. Okay, I got another one here from the hat, from the big hat. If you're just joining, I've got a massive hat here of topics that we're just pulling out and talking about. And this one I have to pull it far away so I can read it without glasses. It says ping post. Ping post. So ping post is generally a technology that allows a lead seller and buyer and a host of buyers, or let me start over, a lead seller to ping a host of different potential buyers of a lead and determine where to deliver it based on price, filters, all that sort of stuff. But it's sort of pinging all of them. They get back to whether they want to accept it at what price, and then generally then gets transacted all within milliseconds usually. Is that how you understand it as well?
Yeah, so it's usually based less on the rules and stuff that you mentioned, and more just like an auction basis, right? So I'm a lead generator. I've collected a lead here. I ping it off to 10 different companies. They send back either an amount or a code or something that relates to how much they will pay for the lead, and then based on the rules that you've set, it's going to get delivered to the highest bidder. So ping post has actually been around for a long time, right? It's like, I think I first encountered it must be 2010 or something like that. And it used to exist primarily, and that industry is probably still the primary user in a sort of payday loans market. It was a very sort of transactional, low, people with low salaries or like in desperate need of money and things.
Yeah.
So the issue I have with ping post is the lack of choice that the user has. So I'm sure there's some scenarios where that auction works well, right? So like I send the lead off, it goes, I don't know, let's imagine it's solar, because I know it's like infiltrated solar quite a lot. And it goes to 5 buyers, and I'm in California, and so I believe I've got the cheapest prices in California and the best product. I'm going to bid highly on it because I know we're going to get a customer because I can service them really well. So that's like the best case scenario that happens, right? But what's far more likely is I have really high interest rates on the loans that I give. It's like 2,000% APR or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone else's is 1,000%. So I'm going to bid really highly on that lead because I know I can make the most amount of money as a lead buyer on it. So now what's happened is the lead generator has made the most amount of money for them. The lead buyer has now made the most amount of money for them. And guess who the loser is?
Right. In
You
that
say it,
scenario,
you say it, Mike. The lead. So the lead has lost out, right? So now we're talking
Yeah.
about this person who probably in their mind has gone to a form, filled it in believing they're getting some sort of comparison, or they're going to be given a great deal based on like them entering it, and actually they've been given the worst deal possible.
Yes, that okay. So I think that is possible. On I would consider maybe like a bell curve, on this sort of type of example, and just about everything where it's still a marketplace, right? And let's continue the idea of a solar. I don't
Mm.
know. Is solar big in UK as well? I think it is, right?
Yeah, it's not as there's not
Yeah,
as
not
much
as
sun, so it's like
yeah, but let's just say so
yeah,
we'll use that. And I don't think leads should be sold 5 times. So I think that's ridiculous. I think 3 times is really probably the optimal amount where a consumer can get a good comparison between 2 or 3 companies and be able to make a decision. I think anything beyond that is too much. We've talked about this in the past.
yeah,
And but anyways, so let's say it goes to so this lead is intended to go to 3 companies so that the consumer can compare prices. It goes to an open marketplace, basically ping post marketplace where people are bidding on that lead based on filters. Maybe I'm going to pay more because it's in if we're going to continue with the UK, if it's in Brighton, I'm going to pay less or more for that lead because I'm local. Whatever it is. I like that lead, or maybe because they need 10 panels versus 3 panels on their house and have no trees in the way. I don't know. Whatever. I'm trying to figure out what the solar panel filters are that make a good lead. But
shade or no shade.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This one has is in the sun. It's going to be a good opportunity for me as a solar installer or whatever. So I'm going to bid a little bit higher on that lead. At the end of the day, those it's not just going to one person, the highest bidder. Now, I think in your scenario, if it's just going to one company, and yeah, they're bidding the most and also charging the most so they can make up that price. Yeah, I think the consumer has a potential to get screwed. But I also think if there's multiple choices, and they are getting like matched with 3 companies, that the marketplace will figure itself out as well, right?
yeah,
They have to compete. Those 3 individuals have to compete on price. They're going to compete head to head on price. So they can't. If going back to your mortgage example, if I'm doing a high interest rate, well, I'm just not going to go to you. I'm just going to go to the guy with the lower interest rate. So it kind of like it'll sort of sort itself out as far as a marketplace goes. But I can see how, if it's a one-to-one situation and I'm just sending a lead to the highest bidder, yeah, I think that could be harmful potentially for the consumer.
yeah. So I think on the scenario you mentioned where it's multi-sell, 100%, that's the
Yeah,
much preferred way of doing it, right? So you just get the lead. These 3 companies have said we all want that lead. That's great.
yeah,
But yeah, where it's one to one, which 100% a lot of companies do, right? Maybe
yeah,
not as much in the US because I know multi-sell's bigger there. In the UK, it's not multi-sell isn't as often used as it is over there.
yeah,
So that's like my issue with Ping Post. If you are selling it to one company and that's based on the highest bidder, which is what happens in the payday loan industry, which I like have issues with anyway, just because of the like nature of the product. But yeah, under
Do
that
they have
basis,
do they have payday? Do they have payday there in the UK as well?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So is
So
that big? Is it big there? Is it big? Because here, like it was big, and it pretty
yeah.
much got, I think, torn apart for good reason by the federal government because they're loan shark. I mean, there's like they're going after the lowest uh, economic people in these economic situations that are in desperate need of help, and these a lot of these companies were taking advantage of that, and so it got torn apart. But is that similar?
Yeah, it's kind of, the situation is kind of similar in the UK. So they started clamping down, but it still happens. There's still
Yeah,
a reasonable amount of payday loan companies with like ridiculously high interest. It just puts people into a spiral of debt. But
yeah,
so the way you mentioned is actually a far more effective way of using ping post. So send it off. They all say we'll do this, but the other way, which is I think my preferred way, is that when they you send it off and it, like you mentioned at the top, it all happens in milliseconds. You then display to the user the companies and you create a genuine comparison, right? So rather than like using the ping post internally to decide who to deliver it to, you display the results to the user. So rather than bidding on a price, maybe it actually comes back with interest rates, or maybe it comes back
yeah,
with why they should work with them, or whatever the thing is. Obviously you only get a snippet of information, so you'd have to figure that out. um, but this comes
yeah.
back
I
to
mean,
this
that turns
thing of
into a
like,
direct. Yeah, go
go on,
ahead.
go on.
Sorry, I was gonna say
No,
that turns into like a directory listing more so than anything, right?
yeah, and I think this is the when you're a lead seller or a lead generator, your greatest possible strength is your impartiality. And if you're not using that, like, you might think you're making more money, but you're not. You're actually doing yourself a disservice, and probably you are doing a disservice to the people who are your leads as well. You're not really helping them, you're just sort of helping yourself.
Yeah, I think while there's ways to make this all work. I think ping post is actually probably a really smart thing for every lead generator to do in a multi-sell situation to maximize revenue, and it's very important in a small margin game that we sometimes lead generators sometimes play, and sometimes it's big margin. But to get the most dollars so that they can capitalize on that and grow and all that sort of stuff. Every company wants to do that, so that's a good idea. But I like what you sort of touched on, which is how do you improve the lead gen process for the consumer and be more transparent. And so if you're matching, whether you use ping post or not, whether you match a single company or multiple companies, I personally think it's a really great thing to show those matches on the thank you page after they've hit submit, whatever it is. Hey, these are the companies that are going to be calling you. Here's a little maybe snippet about them each. Here's their phone number, so you can expect to get a call from them as well. Provide that transparency on that thank you page. Of course, listen, the process, I talked about it turns into a directory listing, which is fine. That's just a different business model. We're driving most companies are driving paid advertising to a landing page and want them to convert on that page so that we can monetize that data. It's a very step-by-step process versus, an open directory where people can search and pick and choose however they want. That's a different process or business model. But I think, to your point, whether they use ping post or not, I think it's a really good idea to show those companies that are specifically matched so that the consumer can be aware of who's going to be calling them. It's going to help everybody. It's going to help the consumer's expectations. It's going to help the lead buyers that are calling, that they, the consumer is expecting their call, that sort of thing. So I think that's a really good idea, no matter what, technology is on the back end. But to show that on a thank you page would be, I think, pretty helpful.
And also maybe not even have it that they're all calling them. Like the default could be these companies all be in contact, but tick here if you want to like not hear from them, or you do want to hear from them, and then they can
Yeah.
interact with it as they want.
Yeah. If I'm putting on my Legion hat, which I can't because it's got stuff in it. But if I'm putting on this massive hat from the lead seller standpoint, I'm going, okay, that means I'm losing I'm losing revenue. When I kind of give I know I'm not saying it's bad, but these are the things that are going through, my head. If I'm a lead seller, it's like, okay, if I give control, over this, um, I may lose out on some revenue. Now, if
Or you change the pricing, right? So if it's like a
yeah,
solus lead, it's like
yeah,
50 quid. If it
yeah,
goes to two, it's 25,
yeah. Or I can just be a little bit more transparent on the page and explain exactly what's going to happen. Hey, by filling out this form, you're going to get calls from 3 banks or solar companies, whatever it may be. And you're going to have the opportunity to compare all those prices and just be, and then once you hit submit, we're going to show you the people that are going to call you. Showing that process and just holding on to that process obviously makes me as a lead generator feel more secure about the process and have a little bit more uh, security in what's going to actually happen. But yeah, that's just I don't generate leads anymore, so I don't have to worry about it. But that's sort of the approach I would sort of take. That happy medium is being transparent on the landing page, and then also still taking control over the matching process on the back end, so that I can get the most revenue I can out of all the hard work I did. All right. Cool. Any final words on that one?
Uh, I maybe wouldn't
Probably
do
a lot, right? We can go
I just
on.
wouldn't do I'd do the back end like you were mentioning slightly differently. I think I'd
Yeah.
still maintain the transparency of the matching. Um, and I think if you can't work with companies that will pay you enough to work with them, then you just don't work with them, and they wouldn't be part of the matching process anyway.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay. Shoot, I picked 2. Let's decide which one. We can either talk about what everybody's talking about, which is AI in lead gen, or we can talk about call tracking. Which one?
Could do both.
All right. All right. Let's start off with call tracking, and then we can talk about AI and how maybe we can implement that in the lead gen process. All right,
Sure.
call tracking. So calls are big. Here in the U.S., calls are exploding over the years. More buyers are wanting calls sometimes than leads, for obvious reasons. They don't have to make the outbound calls. It's so much easier for a consumer to call you, and you pick up the phone and have a conversation. So people are buying calls. Calls include click to call, so or phone numbers on landing pages, and just people just picking up the phone instead of filling out a form, or in ads where they can just, like I just said, click on their mobile and it triggers a phone call, goes through a brief IVR setup where they go, I'm interested in this, this, and this, and then it gets distributed to a buyer based on a bid price, very similar to a ping post situation. So what's your thoughts on call tracking and the call space?
So bizarrely, it's very similar to Ping Post, which is if you're a lead seller and you are generating leads that then get sold to either one of or multiple different lead buyers, if you display a number at the front end, like on the front of the site, that just only goes to one, you're actually removing any sort of comparison. It's potentially not the best deal for the individual. You're not being transparent. So I have a problem with call tracking when it's done on that basis, if lead generators are doing it deceptively effectively. Now, if it's done more in the model where we said ping post could work, which is it's either going to, you make a decision about who's going to call you, or the lead generator has already pre-configured some information. The user has entered some information that means that the call is best placed to go to this lead buyer, as in it's the one that works in their geo, it's the one that can offer them the service that they want, and then they can display a number. So it would mean that if you're a lead generator and you've been given numbers, or you have call tracking that you're working with the lead buyer on, you need to actually get multiple different numbers from lots of different vendors, or the ones that you're working with, and each of them need to be tracked based on what's actually best for the user. Again, not just what's going to make you the most money and the lead buyer, but be the worst deal for the consumer. So it's like It's how it's used. The problem isn't with the tech itself. It's more the, call tracking is great. As a lead buyer, it's like effing brilliant, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, just getting calls in of really warm leads that are desperate to convert, or, clearly very interested in my service. And now I can just track back to exactly where it came from, and it hits 90 seconds, whatever the time period is, and I can pay out based on that.
Yep.
But like all technologies and pretty much anything, you can also use it incorrectly. And that's where issues start with it, is when people are using it for their own gain rather than actually trying to help anyone.
Yeah. So just a quick pause. Those that are listening in, you can comment and give your own opinion on these topics as well. In fact, please do. You can, and we'll include it in this conversation too. So just write a comment, either if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn. Feel free, chime in. So yes, your focus, which I like, is based on the premise of helping a consumer find the best company to work with, right? That's going to be best for them. So if you're utilizing that premise all the time, then which doesn't normally happen, to be honest with you, in the world, right? I mean, if we go to a grocery store right now, the candy aisle is usually front and center than the vegetables. And so,
So
are
when
they
you go
doing?
when you go with your kids, that's the most like annoying thing
Yeah,
on earth, right?
yeah. So it's not they're not doing us any favors by putting the donuts, right by the broccoli, or whatever. But so I like the genuine goal, which I think we should all have, which is how can we connect consumers with really good options for them. I think that's should be at the core of every conversation. Okay, so if it is, and we're talking about calls, obviously calls can't be distributed to multiple sources at one time, because you can only be on a phone with one person at one time. And you know that process would be weird. Even if it was built out, it wouldn't be consumer friendly, where someone would get on a call and they would immediately connect to somebody else. It would be a shit show. But so, yes, if someone picks up the phone, they're talking to one person. Are they the best? Are they the candy up front, or are they the vegetables in the back? Probably, maybe the candy. I don't know, because it could be bidding the highest. Going back to your point. Um, so I listen. Nothing's perfect. In this process, and when people pick up the phone, they know they're going to talk to one company, and they're probably going to have to do the same thing again, if they follow that process. But I'm going to put on the big lead generator hat again. If my goal is to connect consumers with advertisers or brands that are, and my second goal, of course, in doing this, or first goal in doing this, is to make a profit, and get a return on all the money I'm spending on advertising. Then I want to make sure that I am converting as much traffic to that page or that advertisement as possible. And sometimes people don't want to fill out a long form. And sometimes they just want to talk to somebody. And so click to call is a really, really good option for those individuals. So I could argue that I am doing a pretty good, service to the consumer by making it easy to connect with somebody that talk about the service. Is it like I said, is it the donuts or the vegetables in the grocery store? I don't know.
And I think this is the issue though with this sort of short-term mindset, because I think that what can happen in that instance is, you're right, you might make a short-term gain because you're monetizing that piece of
Yeah.
traffic, but your long-term success, I would argue, is probably going to be hampered, because you are never going to be able to create a brand that resonates with people, because all you're interested in is converting people to
Yeah.
the highest possible value that you can.
Okay. You're absolutely right, but I also want to bring up that the market forces. Okay, so there's market forces at hand. So if we're still, whatever product we're talking about, solar, like mortgage rates, payday rate, I don't know, all these sorts of things. They get on a call. There's the people that are bidding high for those, that's not going to last forever. It's going to adjust to a normalized price for the most part. That call is going to cost based on conversions, because the margins of interest, if we're talking about, interest rates on a mortgage, yeah, you can make some, margin different and more money on certain by charging a little bit more on a quarter point or here and there. But at the end of the day, you're still competing against the rates that are on TV, they see on the news, all this sorts of stuff that I think that at the end of the day, and then also lead price, right? So if I'm bidding 10 pounds on something, and the real cost, what people are really bidding is 8 pounds on it, then I'm overbidding by 2 pounds. I'm going to have to convert just as many or more, or I'm going to have to charge more on that to the. I feel like my point is that I think it all over time it all sort of normalizes out, and
Yeah.
there's not these, especially if there's a marketplace. If it's just a couple people in there, yeah, it's not going to work out really well. But I think in a marketplace situation, lead price, and then also conversions and all those sorts of things, and what the price of the product that's being sold all starts to get sort of normalized because there is competition in a marketplace.
Yeah, there is an argument as well that, the individual should just be able to figure this out themselves, which is like
Yeah,
they've been given a quote, and um, but it's sort of this is a thing that makes you wonder about the click to call thing. If I've just bid on, like, I don't know, I've just clicked on a PPC keyword and it was for remortgage rates now or
yeah,
something, and the first ad I see, I just click to call and go straight through. It suggests that they might not fully understand how it works. Um, like, are we taking? Is is there an advantage being taken of their naivety? Um, because who would, would you do that? I mean, this is the strange thing, right? Like, why people do it? Like, um, yeah, I can see your point. I mean, for me, this is, what I'm interested in. And it's bizarrely, it doesn't really relate to our technology at all, right? This is just like my own personal thoughts. Is that lead generators should aspire to actually build brands, and there's a host of reasons they should do that, which is,
yeah,
it actually brings the ad costs down. They need to switch the mindset about who their main client is and have it more focused towards the person who's a lead. I think as a lead gen industry, as a whole, which is like basically the companies that primarily make their money from people's data, we sort of owe something to the people whose data we collect, and maybe we should be seen as more like the vanguard of the custodians of it rather than the people that make the money from it. Anyway, there's a whole host of reasons, and most of them make lead generators more successful, I believe. So under that basis, it's this thing of, okay, so if you switch your mindset of who is the most important client, and it is the person who is a lead, and you build a brand that helps them, and you're building then affinities with the companies that are buying your leads, a bit like comparison sites, effectively. Like, they want to work with you because you've got a really good brand that resonates with consumers. All these things that we've spoken about, and it happens in ping post and call tracking, that isn't to say those technologies can't be used. There's definitely places they can. There's definitely places they shouldn't be used. And if it's being used at the detriment of someone who's either naive, like, you don't want to take the piss out of someone who's naive, right? Like, it's the sort of thing you used to do in school, and I don't know, you get someone's pocket money or something, and you want to offer like genuine value to people. Like, it's difficult to do these things if you're just going to take a really short-term mindset in terms of monetizing their data to the highest possible value that you can.
yeah. Well, you can
And
do
I don't think I don't think you stick around long as a lead generator doing that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think I think you can actually do both at the same time. And I actually think building a brand will create more revenue for you. Like those
Mm.
things go hand in hand, together, as you alluded to. And I think you can, create a process that's efficient, and quick, and is optimized to get the most money, and also serve the consumer. And I think it's but having that at the core, like we talked about earlier, having that consumer at the core of your conversation first, and then going down that path is important versus the other way around.
It's tough though, right? I mean, the problem with it is it takes money usually, because there's a
Yeah.
reason why the best, like a guy who'll be at the show in 2 weeks, who's one of our clients actually. he's a lead generator. He set up in 2019, I think. The first thing he did is got £2 million of funding. And I asked him, like, why do you need the funding? I need traffic. And this is a thing that when you're like on the treadmill or hamster wheel, sorry, like a lot of lead generators are, and they can't get off it because they can't generate enough revenue to actually start thinking about like changing the way they work. So it's this ever like quickening hamster wheel of
Yeah.
selling leads to the highest bidders. And basically, you just become beholden to your clients who buy the leads rather than building a genuine partnership with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. A great point. So let's end that there, if you're cool with that. Well, let's talk just about AI, and I think this may or may not continue into the same conversation. But hey, before we do, I do want to give people, those that are listening right now, just a quick thing. We've got a 50% off code for Lead Generation World London here for you. Those that have been listening in this long, I do want to send this to you right now. So if you want to come to Lead Generation World London, here's 50% off. I mean, I don't know what would stop you. This includes like your food, drinks. Simon's going to be there. I mean, listen,
Don't
people
put
pay a
people off,
lot of
Michael.
money. Yeah,
Don't
people
put
pay a
people
lot
off.
of money to see Simon, and we're going to do it at 50% off right here. So, yeah, here's the code for you for those that are interested. I'm going to show it again later, but I'm going to take it down. So LGWL50, go sign up. Okay. So back to and the other question I had before, are you cool if we go past the hour?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So AI, the other thing I pulled up along with call tracking was AI in lead gen. I freaking love like Chat GPT. I live on Chat GPT and do all kinds of stuff around content generation, just asking all kinds of questions, whether I should wear this big hat out in the public or not. It seems to be confused
I
about it.
think we can all answer that.
Exactly. We don't need AI to answer that question. So those are the simple things, but around machine learning. Okay, so I know there's companies out there today. One TerraCrunch is an awesome company that uses AI and machine learning for companies to either do bidding, real-time bidding optimization, real-time content generation, real-time call learning when to make calls to specific consumers, all these sorts of things around machine learning and AI. And then of course there's the implementation of voice AI and all this sort of things. What do you see as the impact of machine learning and AI on lead gen?
Don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the future. It's really easy to talk like what you could do now, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well,
because
let's talk about what people are doing that's cool now with them. I mean, like I talked about, like obviously there's companies that are utilizing it to manage, millions of different ads and optimization and all this sorts of stuff, and then calls. I mean, what do you see?
so yeah, there's stuff like that, which is, I think it's probably a short-term thing. I think this is the interesting thing about AI, because I could say this and I could be proved horribly wrong, which is, will humans eventually, well, one, will we ever care? So that could easily defute the problem, the point, but will we become sort of so immune to advertising that hits it as a really sort of, or really resonates with us so much? Because imagine like every advert you ever see in your entire life, always at the right point, is exactly what you think you want, need, or might, will just resonate with you.
Yeah.
And actually just lead to like massive banner blindness, because suddenly ads that would have resonated with you because they were deeply personal and really like targeted to you stood out in a sea of sameness and bullshit. And now everything is deeply targeted, resonates with you deeply, and so suddenly it's like, well, how do you resonate with someone now? Because it's
Yeah,
everything.
everything's perfect, right?
Yeah,
Everything is at the right
yeah.
time and the right message and the right call, and everything is just there.
So
Perfection.
so when you so it sounds kind of very disturbing, doesn't it? In one sense, not from like an AI level, more just like a, well, wouldn't life be boring if nothing was shit?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you watch baseball?
no.
No.
Oh, I've seen like Moneyball and the points average, and it's got boring because everyone's just doing
No.
the same
So
thing.
so over here, baseball, obviously you got the umpire behind plate that's calling balls and strikes and all that kind of stuff. And they're sometimes quite impressive how accurate they are. But when you watch baseball, they put a little box where the strike zone is if you're watching on your telly.
I've seen that, yeah.
And there's a conversation around, well, why don't we just automate this balls and strikes thing? If it's in the square, then just call a strike. Who needs the guy back, behind there? Because he'll miss it. He'll
Yeah.
call and he'll be all over. He's human. But does that, lead to imperfection, which maybe we sort of enjoy sometimes? It creates parody, in some of the things, like sport and all that kind of stuff. But so it just made me think about that with if everything was perfect,
Yeah.
would we be happy?
And that's and so think of like, there's that, and also the capitalistic world that we would live in under that guise, which is, we literally are, we, like milking cows. We're being milked of our money constantly. We can't ever refuse anything
Yeah.
because it's like the perfect advert constantly. So from that like dystopian future, it seems kind of disturbing when you look at it like that. But that's why I'm like, I don't believe that could happen, because if it did, I think that we'd all just become so immune to it that it just, it wouldn't happen to some degree. But if we focus more on like creating a better customer journey, might be the better thing. And so this is why I can't really get my head around with like AI and SEO and stuff, and bidding on things, because suddenly you've got a machine now that could just tell you the best thing that you could get. Because I could type, I mean, you couldn't do it because it's not connected to the internet. Maybe Bard could, I don't know, I've not tried it. But, find me the best remortgage rates under these circumstances. I'm, X old, I live in this area, I've got this many kids, my house is like this, and I want
Yeah.
to do Y. And then that just immediately tells you the best rate, in some ways. And this is why I've actually been arguing for quite a while that lead generators need to focus on building brands, in all honesty. Because,
Relationships.
well, you just won't, there'd be no point in you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you've become a pointless entity that I can now find the information out, and I don't need you to sell me to the highest bidder anymore. My
Yeah.
data is me, and so like, that's the way lead generators should probably be worried about, is because their future is kind of tied to it. So that's why I'd focus more on building a brand that can help people, and then you build up like a customer experience, and they begin to like actually sorry, someone's AI brings perfection for sure, but in the end the customer lead is a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's a good point. It's like, it's almost like humanizing the process will become even more important, just to decipher between all the AI fake things, like having a real person, like we're, talking or whatever it may be, a partnership or a relationship will be even more important potentially than ever before.
yeah, it could be a premium placed on human relationships over AI, because you just, it's a bit like when you call your bank and you can't get through, or any of these experiences like
Oh,
chatbots, when you just want to get past them and speak to a person.
yeah.
But there's a bunch of companies that use machine learning. We've done it. It's, if you look at like ProPair, I know the guys
Yeah.
at ProPair.
Yep.
So utilizing every bit of information about a potential lead, enriching it in some circumstances, and then making decisions about which agent it should go to, or what is the best experience this person could go through based on all the information that we know about them. That, I think, is more of a short-term thing, right? Which is like getting all this data and making some serious decisions about the customer journey. Then you've got people that are bidding on like billions of SEO keywords and using like ChatGPT or the other tools in something like Unbound to just write billions and billions and billions of headlines, that just isn't going to work. I mean, it's like you don't need to be a genius to figure out that that's only going to have a shelf life of probably not very long, even if it does work, because search engine optimization is going to have to change. Because if it carries on like it is, it's the same sort of thing, right? Which is like the best writer for SEO is the one that rises to the top, not the one that's going to necessarily give you the best information. And that's the point with something like ChatGPT, and it kind of is a model almost for the bidding process we were talking about with leads. Is that all these things will slowly start to become redundant because people don't need those services anymore. Like you've got the entire history of humanity and all knowledge in the world at your fingertips. You're going to seriously go into a ping post to get sold to the highest bidder. So I don't know how long this future will be, but that's the reality. And I think that's why, lead generators definitely would be far better placed on trying to concentrate on creating brands that resonate with people.
Yeah, totally agree. Love it. All right, should we do one more?
Sure.
All right. We got a couple more in here. Let me see. Okay, all right. Why not? We're sort of on this topic, anyways. This one, maybe we don't do top 5, but I'll read it off here, and then we can modify the question. Top 5 reasons why brands are skeptical of buying leads. I think you were talking about, I think last time I spoke to you, you were talking about, an agent or a brand that didn't want to buy leads for some reason. I couldn't remember if that was with you, but okay, maybe not top 5 reasons, but give me some reasons why brands are generally skeptical about buying leads. I mean, we talked about a lot of it already, right? Transparency, not knowing where leads are coming from, not knowing the process. Does that sort of cover it? Or I'm sure there's other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could answer it on a really sort of surface level where we could say, it's like murkiness and they don't necessarily understand how to generate or anything. But it really all comes back to far deeper points, which we've kind of alluded to, which is a lot of lead generators don't have the lead's interest at best heart. And most brands want to be seen to be having their the people who are going to be their prospects or customers' best interests at heart. And so that is like this, it creates this juxtaposition between trust where imagine you're working with an entity that will do anything to monetize an individual, including falsifying information, potentially, collecting it at one time and selling it at another, doing all the sort of miscreant things that we've mentioned. And there'll be another company who do the complete opposite. We know plenty of them. I'm sure a lot will be at your show that are really good lead generators and follow best practices and, whatever else. The problem is the perception of the industry all gets wrapped up with the negative side. It's not like they go, oh yeah, the industry's two seams where some are really good and some are really bad. It gets looked at the most negative option, which is, even in the worst case scenario, there's stuff like the auction bidding on the highest bidder. I mean, no brand in their right mind would do that, right? Like if it was going to one seller. Same with the call tracking. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those technologies. I'm saying in the worst user case that they can be used. So you put all these things together, and the perception of lead generation as an industry from the outside is that they are there just to purely make money from people's data, and they'll do anything to make money from that data. So once you have a brand that could look like that, and I think it was Callum Dudley that we were talking about when he came on our podcast, because he works at is it Mindshare? It's part of a big agency group anyway, and so they have some massive like global clients and things. So he gets dragged into meetings and is said, okay, here's Callum to talk to you about how you can generate new customers. And what he noticed is that when he talks about lead generation, he sees eyes roll, he sees a hesitancy. he sees people's like backs going up and stuff. So he wanted to change the name of it. He no longer goes in and calls it lead generation. He goes in and calls it something else, like, I don't know, prospect generation or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact words he used.
I forgot too.
Yeah.
Customer acquisition? No. What
Yeah.
was it?
It,
But go ahead.
it wasn't anything like, you know, that you're going to go home and sort of
Yeah.
weep about at night in its elegant beauty, but it was just like a name change. If you're listening, I don't know if Callum's listening to this, but I'm sure it was very good. You'll have to remind me what it was. So what this creates is all these things. So they have this like general mistrust, a lot of big brands. And what's interesting is that as Databowl, we work with a few big brands, right? So and they use Databowl for a host of reasons. A lot of them is like a bit of middleware that they use it so you know, control their CRM or their dialer, and they can remove and verify and whatever else. But if you actually dig into one of the key reasons why they use it, they'll say protection. And what they think they're or what they are protecting themselves from, and what they want to protect themselves from, is bad data that they think is potentially always there, which isn't necessarily user driven, which could also be driven by lead generation companies. So this is why there's this sort of perception. You know, it's quite difficult to put the finger on one or five things. I think it's almost like a general perception. And this is why I think in the lead gen industry, we could shift that perception, but what it actually takes is this idea that so what's really interesting about it, right, is we're the industry that deals with people's personal data. So like, it's a hugely important thing that a lot of people feel very, very strongly about, and that's consumers, brands, everything. It's in the news, everything.
Yeah.
But people don't necessarily think of it that way because we're all so tied to just trying to make as much money as possible. But there's almost like the opportunity where if we become the industry that's known for protecting that data as well, it feels like the perception of it could change. So then Callum can go in and be like, yeah, you know, I'm in the lead gen industry, and they all come clamoring to me and go, you are the guys who can get us more customers. You're the guys that people trust, the consumers trust, and things. So it's really difficult to answer, but this somewhere in that like diatribe that I've just given, it feels like there's something in it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's a lot to it, right? There's definition of what a lead is part of a problem. People have different definitions. Some people think it's just some list of prospects scraped off the internet and sold, you know. And some you know, it also could be lack of understanding, you know, of what the process is. And that's not just because I'm not saying skeptical lead buyers are dumb. I'm just saying they may know they may think they know the process, but those sellers maybe weren't transparent with them, right? And then also maybe they haven't investigated or vetted out those lead sellers properly, or don't know how to. Like you had a really good you know, example of what you did in the past working with lead sellers. You audit them every month, but how about an audit before you even start working with some of these companies, you know, and then holding them accountable on a regular basis for those ongoing audits. How do you vet out a lead? You know, how do you determine whether a company is being honest with how they're advertising? I mean, I used to use SEM Rush, and I'd say, give me your top landing pages. And I would, you know, and I would take those landing pages and I'd go to SEM Rush and see if they're buying any advertising. You know, how is the traffic going? And a couple of times there would be zero traffic going to those landing pages.
Yeah, I've
And
seen
I'm
that.
like,
It's amazing.
guys, come on. You sent me, I went and there's zero. Oh, we just started it this last week. No, bullshit. Bullshit. You give me the stuff that you're generating with right now, and we'll maybe figure some out. But at this point, I already don't trust you. So, you know, go kick rocks. But you know, things like that to ensure that you're working with the right partner, I'm not entirely sure buyers are doing, and so they're at risk by not doing that. And then, of course, bad experiences with leads, and that's either because the lead quality, or maybe because the lead buyers don't have a really great process in their sales team to follow up on leads. You know, that's a part of it too. I mean, a bad experience doesn't always mean bad lead quality. It could mean a number of things. You know, maybe they're not calling the leads within seconds. Maybe they're not emailing you. Maybe they're just emailing. You know, I don't know. Whatever the process is, maybe they only call one day and they never call it again. Maybe they call 7 days. You know, maybe that process isn't in place or suitable for a lead to come in either from their own website or even from a third party. So I mean, there's probably those experiences that have you know, given a poor perception of partnering with a quote unquote lead generation partner, you know, that I think could play a part into it. Just more specifically, play a part into it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're exactly right. The lack of knowledge about it as well is a key thing. So if we were talking about brand, because there's two types of brands in the lead or that buy leads. There's ones that are part of the lead gen industry, which I class as like they primarily use it as a way to grow their companies, and there's ones which are removed, and it's just like a tactic they use alongside, you know, loads of other marketing that they do. So the ones outside of it, they definitely like have a potential lack of knowledge around it, you know, what the process is. And the problem is it's not even a lack of knowledge. They don't even know how to potentially get that knowledge either. Exactly what you were saying.
I put myself on mute because I was moving my
All
big hat around here as we finish off. But I agree with you. I'm putting on my big smart hat since we're out of questions. But and I listen. That is exactly why I put on Lead Generation World, right? Is to hopefully bring, and this is why I a lot of times give brands free passes to come, because it's super important to come to a show, whether it's Lead Generation World or others. I don't really care. I mean, go in there and learn. I mean, obviously, I think you'll get different content that's very specific to yours and my passion, which is, you know, transparency and trust and all this sort of stuff, and building best practices so that people can succeed in this industry. But, you know, it's important for brands to be exposed to these best practices, these ideas, so that they can take them and apply them and be successful with either buying third party leads or generating them on their own, whatever it may be. Um, uh, so, yeah, you know, we keep trying, we keep chipping away. Your podcast is awesome. If people don't know about it, they should. They should get to your website, obviously here, databowl.com, or go to your. I don't have your LinkedIn uh, link that I can pop up here real quick, but finding Simon or Databowl on LinkedIn is a wise decision, because there's a lot of good content and conversation that you can get into as well. You guys do a good job at posting good content out there.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Well, I hope you had fun. I had fun going over these.
Yeah, I had fun.
That was cool. We should do it again and come up with some other ones and go back and forth, and which was cool. We didn't always necessarily agree on everything, but generally, I think we did. You know,
I think this is the best sort of podcast, right? Like, whenever we have people on our podcast, I always say, like, don't just sell yourself. Try and you know, talk about things. I think it's important that we, as an industry, do that and talk about sort of wider subjects.
Yep, totally. Well, let's do it again then. We can do it next month. We can make it a regular thing. I got a feeling we'd probably run out. Surprisingly enough, I think we'd probably run out of stuff to talk about, but who knows? Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
For those of you that are seeing this on a recording and got my message in the beginning and totally fast forwarded everything just to get this discount code, here it is. It's at the bottom, and it's 50% off for Lead Generation World London, which is May 9th and 10th in London. It's going to be a good time. I can't wait to get there. And for 50% off, there's no reason why you shouldn't be there. And then secondly, for you, those same individuals that fast forward to the end, go back, and listen to everything we talked about. It's your duty that I gave you this code to take an hour and 15 minutes out of your day to listen to both Simon and myself. It's what you owe us. So anyway, I appreciate everybody that participated, that listened in on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. It's awesome to have you guys listen to us live, and we hope to see you in London. Simon, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk with you. Best of luck with partner hype. Which you'll be talking more about in London, and then probably moving on from there. You're talking a lot about it, and best of luck with that. And Databowl.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
All right. We'll talk to you guys all later.
Cheers.